Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we are unpacking a really fascinating, honestly, pretty critical editorial from Nature Medicine. It's all about the absolute explosion of artificial intelligence in healthcare. I mean, AI is literally everywhere right now, right? But this hard hitting piece, it's kind of pumping the brakes. It's asking a seriously important question about patient safety and actual measurable value. So, we're going to explore exactly what these researchers are arguing, why it matters so much to you, whether you're a patient or a healthcare provider, and how the medical field desperately needs to adapt to this totally new technology. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. The multi-billion-dollar question staring the medical industry in the face right now is actually pretty simple. Is medical AI actually improving care? Because, the hype surrounding AI in medicine right now is absolutely deafening. We're constantly hearing about these algorithms that can supposedly diagnose diseases way faster, or even better, than human doctors. But the source material here points out a glaring issue. Actual, concrete evidence that these AI tools create real value for patients or providers or health systems, it remains incredibly scarce. There's just this massive gap between what tech companies claim their AI can do and what they can actually prove it does in a real clinical setting. And just to give you a sense of how vast this boom really is, the adoption is accelerating at breakneck speed across literally all layers of our healthcare systems. We are seeing predictive models operating right in the middle of clinical environments. You've got decision support tools actively guiding medical providers. Generative AI tools have officially entered hospital systems. And it's not just doctors behind closed doors, right? Large language models, or LLMs, are being used by the general public more and more every single day just to seek out medical advice. This is a remarkably high-stakes environment because at the end of the day, we are dealing with human health and human lives. Yet the technology is infiltrating our systems way faster than our ability to actually measure its true impact. To put that into perspective, let's look at how medicine usually works. Historically, making a claim about clinical impact required a massive amount of proof. Think about traditional drug development. It requires progressively stronger evidence, strict government oversight, and rigorous clinical trials before a drug is ever approved. But compare that established pipeline to medical AI today. We're functioning in a completely different reality. The rapid pace of technological change, the huge variety of different applications, and frankly, completely inadequate regulatory frameworks mean that these tools are being adopted prematurely. Decisions to implement these AI tools are frequently made before we even know if they're actionable, safe, or effective. It is essentially the Wild West out there right now. So you might be wondering, how are we currently evaluating these AI tools if the regulations are so lacking? Well, mostly through statistical metrics. Things like discrimination, calibration, sensitivity, and specificity. Now, don't get me wrong here. Mathematically measuring how well an AI spots patterns or avoids false alarms is important. But these metrics primarily evaluate a tool's computational capabilities. Basically, they measure how good the computer is at doing math. They absolutely do not establish clinical impact on their own. Right now, the industry is totally confusing technical validity with clinical usefulness. Just because an algorithm scores perfectly on a math test in a computer lab doesn't mean it actually helps a doctor save a patient's life in a hospital. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how vividly it shows the messy reality of an actual hospital. A system might perform incredibly well when tested on old retrospective data, but completely fail to improve care in the real world. Why? Well, because the outputs might be poorly timed for the doctor. Or maybe the recommendations are just way too complicated for a busy nurse to interpret on the fly. Maybe the data is inconsistently acted upon by the staff. Or perhaps worst of all, the technology is highly disruptive to existing clinical workflows. If a mathematically perfect AI model slows down a chaotic emergency room, it is not a successful medical tool. When health systems buy into these products without concrete measures of clinical impact, the unintended consequences can be severe. It's disruptive and scientifically uncertain. So, how do we fix this? That brings us to the editorial's proposed solution, the proportional evidence framework. So, the crucial point is this fundamental rule, which is elegantly simple. The stronger the claim an AI developer makes, the stronger the evidence they need to support it. The medical field urgently needs this systematic way to evaluate technologies before any tool is trusted with patient care. Look at how it scales. If a company claims their AI has great analytic performance, they need robust validation in the actual setting they intend to use it in. If they claim clinical actionability, they have to scientifically prove the outputs are interpretable and support reasonable decisions. Making a claim about workflow benefit? Well, show us the implementation studies proving it doesn't cause delays or burden the staff. And if you're going to make the ultimate claim that your AI improves patient outcomes or efficiency, you need the absolute gold standard. Stronger prospective evidence, including comparative evaluations to the current standard of care. But we do need to pause here for a very important caveat from the source material. The editorial makes it explicitly clear. Not every AI tool needs a randomized controlled trial, and honestly, this makes total sense if you think about it. Expecting every single AI algorithm update to go through a massive, slow, randomized controlled trial, like a new pharmaceutical drug, is just totally impractical. It would cost way too much, take way too long, especially given how incredibly fast these models are updated. However, the authors are equally firm that just accepting retrospective performance, how the AI did on past data, is not scientifically rigorous enough to build trust. It's all about finding that proportional middle ground. Regardless of the specific evidence level required for an initial claim, there is one mandatory requirement across the board for all medical AI, and that is post-deployment monitoring. AI models are not static pieces of software. Their performance can, and literally will, shift over time as they encounter new patient populations, new diseases, and changing hospital environments. Therefore, continuously monitoring these tools after they are deployed cannot be some optional late addition. It has to be a strict, built-in, institutional expectation. We have to keep verifying that the tool is still doing exactly what it promised to do on day one. So how do we actually put this proportional framework into practice to protect patients? It requires immediate action from all the major players in the medical field. First, regulators need to step up and clarify exactly which AI tools require prospective evidence of clinical impact and which ones can enter practice with more limited claims. Second, healthcare organizations and hospital administrators have to stop confusing their decisions. They must clearly distinguish between a pilot implementation and actual evidence of benefit. And third, scientific journals must strictly enforce these proportional evidentiary standards for any published research. Evidence standards just need to be transparent, claim-specific, and always open to revision. And this brilliantly illustrates how the wider research ecosystem plays a massive role here. In rapidly emerging fields like medical AI, published literature basically dictates what constitutes valid evidence for the whole industry. The editorial emphasizes that journals have a unique opportunity, and frankly, a massive responsibility, to define these standards. Publications like Nature Medicine are essentially drawing a line in the sand, committing to ensuring that the research they publish reflects genuine clinical claims rather than just mere technical promise. They're demanding proof of clinical value, not just proof of a cool mathematical concept. Which brings us to our final thought. The authors leave us with this incredibly powerful warning. Without a clear connection between claims and evidence, medical AI risks being adopted faster than its real value can be understood. As we navigate this massive medical AI boom, we have to deeply consider, are we prioritizing shiny new technology over concrete medical proof? The next phase of healthcare progress isn't just about building better AI models, it's about setting clear expectations for how clinical impact is defined, evaluated, and communicated. So, what do you think the future of AI in your doctor's office should look like? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the tough questions, and I'll see you next time.